Okay, and we are live on both streams. Good afternoon, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm Never No Shorty, and today's going to be an odd review. It's going to be a little bit more disjointed, a little bit more off the cuff, because I haven't really thought too much about what I'm going to say for this one. Usually I give myself quite a bit of time, but this one I thought, no, because I've already reviewed Barbaric. I have, and it was one of my best of the year for the year it came out. It did a 3-issue miniseries, then there's been a one-shot, and then it's now carrying on. And if you want to know my opinion on Barbaric, you can kind of already watch a review. This one is basically kind of touch on the idea of what it means to be a returning comic book and how you can do that and how you can actually present it in a way which is good. First off, I want to talk about is the artist. I want to make sure I get his first name right, because I always get his first name wrong. Nathaniel Gooden is an artist, and he's also one of the people who actually is involved quite high up within Vault Company. I think he was like one of the guys who helped create the company and like that. He's done artwork on a few things I've loved. He was also did Cysperia's Rush, which is one of my favorite comic books. Might end up being one of my favorite comics of all time. I went back and reread it fairly recently, and it absolutely stands out. Cyspiria, brilliant writer. Gooden's art is just phenomenal. He has a brilliant way of adapting to time and space and setting, and making the artwork really like a huge part of the story, and a really huge part of the setting, and everything about the feel of it comes through really effectively. And him going back to it is a really good thing, because there was a one-shot, little middle thing, Harvest Blaze, I think it was called, set between the two, or actually set before them. But it was a really good comic book. One shot, slightly oversized, kind of brutal story going on with it. Really nice kind of revenge story. Really, really good. But it didn't have Gooden on the artwork, and as such, it is officially my least favorite of the Barbaric comic books. But being my least favorite Barbaric comic book still means it's a really, really good Barbaric comic book. And this one comes back, and they're probably going to have something like this, is, do you just do what your fans expect? I mean, there's like a music industry thing, it's like the difficult second album. If you're a band which absolutely blew people away with your first album, you run the risk of either doing more of the same because you think it's going to be successful because that's what people liked, but then people might be like, oh, well, we liked it the first time around, but why are you presenting the same thing over and over again? Or you could try and do something quite different, maybe not like an entire departure from your previous work, but you could end up alienating people who came because they wanted a certain type of comic book, some type of album, should I say. And it leaves you in a position where there's no real way to please everyone. I mean, that's true of all artistic endeavor, but the second album problem is kind of a well-known thing. So we're going to look at that in terms of Barbaric, the second volume. And straight away, it's doing something which I like. It keeps in on all the stuff that I loved, which is effectively really over-the-top, brutal violence, and a sense of humor to it, which just about skirts not being a comedy comic book. I have some issues with comedy comic books. I think if your intent is to make people laugh, it is far easier to get that wrong. It's far more subjective than most artists, in my opinion. What I generally prefer is comic books which are just are funny by the setting and pacing and the fact that things are happening to people that's not expected and their response to it. You can make a comic book very funny without telling a single joke. Some of my favorite kind of actual stand-up comedy, people who just tell jokes aren't my cup of tea. I like the idea of just hearing a story about a world and an event and things that happen to people, and they're just funny, and that's great. It's the same kind of writing in this one that I really like. There is an occasional, like an almost, I don't want to say it like a rimshot kind of moment, like a bit of kind of moment. It isn't quite that there. It never like leans into the humor that much, but the setup is there, and when it pays off, you can see the payoff, and it works really effectively. It is kind of my perfect level of humor as well. It is dark, but it's also got a lot of camaraderie to it. It's people who know each other quite well and kind of know their boundaries and what they can say to each other. I have a discussion with people who like use the term banter to get away with insulting. Me and my friends can banter with each other. The fact that I'm short with an overbite and went grey and I'm 44 and I'm older than a few of my friends, or the fact that some of my friends are older than me and I'm the kid of the group, all this kind of stuff, they know me well. They can take the mickey out of stuff, which if some complete stranger walked up to me and said it, it'd be an insult. Barbaric is written from this point of view that these people know each other, and it's also a developing relationship. We have the female magic user, who is absolutely excellent, by the way. She has an absolutely glorious moment when she casts a spell and summons a whole bunch of blades and just absolutely tears a vampire apart. She's fantastic. But she's kind of new to this group, but you get that sense of seeing a relationship develop as well. So it does everything I wanted it to, and it builds on it. The violence is, if anything, slightly more over the top. There is an instance where somebody gets every bit of the skin of their upper body and arms and head torn off by a kraken, which is brilliant and totally not what I was expecting, but it works. It's totally in keeping with what happens. Nothing feels like it's done to try and be more than the last comic book. It's not trying to jump any shark, proverbial or otherwise, because there's a lot in the ocean. But it is still building on it in ways which feel organic and natural. And speaking of organic and natural, not only is the artwork fantastic for that, I still like the fact that the Barbarians, hair is kind of held up with woad and blood, but the writing as well feels very natural. It is people talking to each other in the way they would in pubs. There is little breaks where people suddenly realize they're saying something which might not be appropriate, and they carry on talking about it. And yes, the axe is still wacky. He gets drunk on vampire blood, and it gives him like a really bad hangover. It's really quite entertaining. Turns out he quite likes Kraken blood, which was a nice little thing as well. I like the fact that even the axe is getting development as a character. And also they're going to do an advice column where you can write in letters to the axe and get them replied. It's brilliant. Vault Comics are fantastic. And yes, I knew when I started this, I told you straight away what I was effectively going to do was tell you what I already like Barbaric. You don't need to know that. But if you're ever on the fence and thinking about trying it out, grab the hardback collection of the original series and then just go and buy this. If your comic book sells it, just buy it. Support Vault Comics. They do really, really good things. A lot of the creators there are fantastic people. And more than that, they put out just top-notch comic books. I don't love everything they do, but if I find something that I do love, I'm going to tell you about it. And if I have to tell you about it more than once, I will. That's it from me today, though. I'm going to be back tomorrow morning with at least one review. Until then, look after each other, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.